going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of BYP Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Pleasant Bridge, Hertfordville Road. I'm thinking of Pleasantville already, Hertfordville Road. They're going to have all these other locations, so forgive me if I'm showing my hand with you guys at Play It Again Sports, but be that as it may. See, this is why I need my fresh roasted cup of coffee, which, by the way, we are also powered by fresh roasted coffee, and that's why I come prepared. I feel like I'm jet lag. I had travel going on, but that's our guest, our good friend Johnathan Marshall. By the way, do not forget, you can use that promo code. It's in my show notes, 20% off, BYP20 off your first purchase. I feel like I've been doing all the traveling. You've been doing all the traveling. We're flubbing the start of BYP.
Yeah.
We got to talk about future odds. We got to talk about the NBA finals. We got to talk about guys getting paid $65 million to just shoo, go
Oh yeah.
away. But with that, Johnathan Marshall, our good friend, our Hoops Insider, sports reporter, anchor for WMUR. I will catch my breath. How are you?
I'm good, Q. Fresh off a championship coverage celebration. It was a good time in Boston, late night, but it was fun though covering this finals. It was dope. Traveling to Dallas, getting a little jet lag as you mentioned, but it was fun. I'm still catching up on some rest, but it's been fun.
Well, you and I, it's funny because over the last several weeks and going into the playoffs, you and I just figure, listen, here it is, 1-2, Brown, Tatum. It's got to be Boston. Get
Yeah,
that 18th banner. It's all on them. The Eastern Conference open up. You look at the odds. You look at all the injuries.
yeah,
They should get to the finals. They have to win the finals. It's going to be a colossal failure, a choke job after winning 60-something plus games.
yeah.
And we kind of went back and forth, wondering why all these talking heads are looking at Dallas and saying Dallas is going to win the series. You and I said perhaps 5, definitely Boston in 6.
Yeah.
And listen, we know how good Boston is. I want to flip the script for a second. And if you talk about what went wrong with the Dallas Mavericks, a couple things that this is just from me, bird's eye view. You were covering the finals up close and personal. Luke and Kyrie did not have the best series. Defensively, there were lapses. Perimeter defense by the Dallas Mavericks, in my estimation, got exposed, even though Boston wasn't nailing three-point shots at a high clip. The problem was there were too many wide open looks. Hardaway Jr. gave them nothing. The third option wasn't existent. And just the inconsistent and just sporadic play when it comes to the rebounds and off the glass and running and playing both ends of the floor. I think that spelled doom for Dallas. It's one of the reasons I thought Boston was going to win this series. When I say what went wrong for Dallas, do you agree with any of those points I just brought up?
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we talked about, right? In what world, in a basketball sense, what valid basketball reasoning do you have to pick Dallas in a series against Boston, right? Let's check off the list, right? You talk about experience.
Yep.
The Celtics, they have a guy in Drew Holiday who has won a championship. A couple years ago, these guys were in the finals against the
Yep.
Warriors. So they've had these playoff battles. On Dallas's side, it's only Kyrie Irving who has had that championship experience, right? So outside of that, it's a whole different level. You can say, hey, it's just another game, but it's not. The NBA Finals is a different stage. The media coverage, the attention, the lights, it does get brighter. It's a different level of attention. So if you're not prepared for that, you may not be yourself mentally. You may not be as focused or on point compared to a regular playoff or a regular season game, right?
Yeah.
So it's a difference, right? Number two, defensively with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, your two best players cannot be the weak links defensively because
Which they were.
that sets the tone for the rest of the team. And they were, which was an easy thing to point out. Number three, offensively, outside of Kyrie and Luka, who else is going to be consistent? Yes, you got PJ Washington and Derek Jones in the previous series knocking down shots. But once again, we said the finals, the bigger stage, it's a pressure situation. Guys aren't going to be the same. And defensively, Boston is putting the pressure on you because there's 5 guys at one time that can do multiple things. These guys can all handle it. They can all shoot it. They can all score. So the pressure is on you twofold to not only defend, but also try to keep up offensively. They're just not built for it.
Yeah. And by the way, when you let guys like, and Derek White, D2 player, came into his own, but when you
Yeah.
let Sam Doogie Howser start, ripping off points, right? You got bench and role players. It was lined up for the Boston Celtics. And I, I thought the series as a whole, I thought the playoffs as a whole, don't even get me started on the coverage by ESPN, was just an absolute abomination and a friggin' joke. I don't need 20 minutes on Stephen A in a suit walking through the tunnel. I don't need 13 seconds of clips. It was utterly just an embarrassment. People getting names wrong left and right. It was just a friggin' debacle. But this was a there was no juice really to these playoffs at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And the finals, all these games were
Mhm.
blowouts. I mean, think about it. The one game that Hardaway Jr. showed up and had 12, 13, 14, 15 points because he was scoreless in the other ones, it was like a 30-point, 20-point win by the Dallas Mavericks. There were no buzzer beaters, no clutch shots, not, crunch moments. It was just they're winning. Boston's winning. They're covering the nut here and there. You're putting money in the pocket, and that's wonderful. But there was no juice
Nah.
to these NBA finals at all.
Yeah. Being at the games, I didn't have to watch the ESPN coverage, but I heard, and
Horrible.
you're seeing on
Horrible.
social media different clips and people saying what's going on. It's like the media narrative when it comes to the national media and the ESPN and these networks covering the finals, that has a major part in how it's presented and the energy surrounding it. And so there's a lot of hot takes. There's a lot of conversations about free agency during an NBA finals coverage, certain names, right? That LeBron and his son and the coaching cycle for the Lakers, right? Instead of actually talking about these stories of players. And there's some great, you mentioned Derek White coming from a D2 level to this point now. Like there are some great stories that need to be told and shared that these networks aren't really taking the time out to do. They're trading in for the quick, hot clicks, social media clicks, and it adds to the energy, the lack thereof. There wasn't even in the classic NBA Finals logo on the floor. I think on the TV you're able to see the YouTube TV because that's where the money's at, right? But there's no the energy. The finals used to feel like a moment. I'm not sure if they even showed the player intros on TV.
Because the
Did they?
game's not where it used to be. I remember watching, as a kid, and I'm dating myself because I didn't have the big color TV in my room. I had the small black and white, but I remember, 88, 89, 90, 91. I remember, obviously, it was the anniversary of the chase and the coverage the other day, the Knicks and the Rockets. I mean, the heyday, there was just no juice. And you're right. I felt maybe because of different markets. I mean, hating the Boston Celtics, not really caring about the friggin' Dallas Mavericks. It is what it is. I still was watching as a fan doing what I do in
Yeah.
this profession, but I just thought it was an abomination where, listen, we're going to grab Joel and Embiid and we're only going to grab him and let you know that Paul George is on the set so I can side eye you and kind of recruit. The other thing, people talking about tampering, there's tampering all the time. Look what these players are doing. I think we've gotten to the point now where, as you mentioned, we are so we want to drive home this point where we can make the buzz, we can get the eyeballs, we can just say something so ludicrous, so asinine, so outside the box, even if you really want to be, the definition of a contrarian. There's no chance in hell the Boston Celtics were losing this series. There wasn't, okay? There wasn't, even with a banged up, not healthy
Right.
Porzingis. They just were not, they were the flat out better team, period. But to your point, I mean, they could have done so many things. You could have talked about the list of the Celtics. You could have went back to the heyday. You could have talked about the history, the wall-to-wall Hall of Famers. Hey, how does this Mavericks team translate or draw the parallels to the team with Dirk when they were down 0-2, and then Miami was celebrating. They came back and went like so many different things. It was all, and it was Kyrie going back to Boston and, Porzingis and man, I'm telling you, there was no juice, but listen, Boston, rightfully so, favorites next year, plus 300, Denver plus 750, Minnesota plus 850, Dallas at plus 900. Um, I heard a lot of people, and they've been asking me as well, is this one of the all-time great teams in NBA history?
Mhm.
No. Is
Mhm.
it an all-time great Boston team? You
Of
win
course.
64 games? Yes. Now, do we want to put an asterisk because of who you went through in the Eastern Conference? Quite frankly, if I'm a Knicks fan, which I am,
Mhm.
and the Knicks go through a road like that and win a
Yeah.
championship, I'm not complaining. I don't believe in oh, you got to put an asterisk. And it's like saying, well, look who the Patriots beat up for 20 something years in a horrible AFC East. Now, am I going to look at this team and say it's the 84, 85, 86 Boston Celtics? I think the 84 Boston Celtics lost one game on their home floor. And I believe, and memory serves me correct, they beat the Lakers in 7, which was an unbelievable squad, right? So is this the greatest Celtics team ever? Or is
Uh,
that we lose sight of those other teams with Havlicek and Russell and all those guys?
yeah, you talking about Bird, McHale, like
Parrish.
these are some, yeah, Parrish, like these are some really great Celtics teams that you got to talk about, right? And so my knowledge of is only being a younger fan of the game and going back and seeing highlights and videos. I wasn't around during that time, so I don't truly understand living in real time, seeing the impact that the Russells and the Kuzis and the Havliceks and the Birds and the McHales had. But I know years later, we're still talking about those teams, right? You understand? So years later, 20 years from now, what's the conversation of this year's Celtics team compared to the Birds and the Russells? I got a feeling we're still talking about those Birds and those Russell squads.
Listen, the 85 team won 67 games.
Mhm.
They were stacked. The 84 team, 63 and 19. And remember now, they struggled, right, when Bird came about. But then obviously they had their run 81, and then it was them and the Lakers. I mean, that was the heyday. We're not even talking about those old Celtics teams of yesteryear. I mean, look, and you look at the coaches. I mean, Casey Jones, rollerblade right into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I mean, those teams were stacked. I think the NBA is a watered down product, which kind of leads me into this. You know, we saw how bad the Detroit Pistons were, right? So Monty Williams, see ya, have a good day. Here we go. You lose 68 games, which is unheard of in today's NBA, by the way. It's unheard of. I
Yeah.
mean, you that's a freaking disgrace, right? This is a guy that took the Suns to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago, who's
Yeah.
still getting paid. Now he's going to get paid 65 million. There were reports, and I saw you kind of retweeted a couple of things that, hey man, he didn't really want the job, right? Or you made the comment he didn't want the job, but yet, the money speaks for itself. That was a really once proud franchise in the NBA, and they are a flat out laughing stock, man. He's gone after one season. Now, is this more about roster construction? And if that's the case, doesn't it also fall on the GM, or is this on Williams just not? I can't even say the message not getting through, because if you don't even watch the NBA, you're a casual, you probably can't name one player on that Pistons squad.
Right. It's never just one answer, right? I mean, you talk about the Celtics, Brad Stevens made some great moves to build this team. But kudos for Joe Mazzulla for improving as a coach, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there is multiple elements to building a winning team. It's a top to bottom thing, right? You always start at the top with any organization. You start at the top. If I see things failing in the office, I got to look upstairs
Sure.
and see what's going on.
That's
If
why
you,
the gripes go up, the chain of command.
they make the ultimate decisions. You show me a poor team, I show you a poor front office,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no reason why Killian Hayes should have been the seventh pick in the draft and Tyrese Maxey is still on the board. And that's not hindsight 2020. There's a lot of pre-draft hype for Killian Hayes. I can see it from a mile away. He is not that guy. And also, Monty Williams deserves blame too. He's starting Killian Hayes over Jay and Ivy. There's no excuse for that. Killian Hayes, in no shape or form, is a better player than Jay and Ivy. I don't know what that situation was about, but just watching the games earlier in the season, just to see how bad the situation was, Killian Hayes being a starter on that team showed me everything I need to know about Monty Williams in Detroit. They were unserious. And so
Yeah.
he took the job because of the money. You can call it what it is. Let's just be honest. He said he didn't want the job. Those were the reports. Somebody offers you 65 million. Oh, okay. I'll take the job now.
Plus bought out,
It-
right? I
it-
mean, he's still going to get paid, right? And he lasts
it-
one season. And I think we were talking about during the season, it's almost like free Cade Cunningham, get him out of there. Because if you think about it, they don't really have, they don't have star players. They're a young team. They're in flux. And I don't know, again, who's going to want this job. You've still got, Cleveland, you got the Lakers, now you got Detroit. Those
yeah,
are opportunities there. And you're right. Sometimes when the money speaks, you're just going to take the job and think you can fix things up. And then if you get fired, you're still going to walk
yeah.
away with some bank.
Listen, this isn't look, they have new management. Trajan Langdon is there now making decisions. Now they have to have a new coach. Like this is going to be a full like they've been in full rebuild mode for
Mm,
forever, it feels like, right? And so it's going to come down to making the right evaluations when it comes to talent, actually developing your talent. They did Jay and Ivy a disservice by not giving him the amount of playing time that he deserved to start the year, right? And so Detroit Pistons fans have to be patient because you aren't getting any free agents.
no,
If you do, you might have to overpay for somebody like a Tobias Harris type, right? And nobody wants that.
no,
These fans
no.
know what I'm talking about, right? And so for Detroit, it comes down to just really stripping it all down, starting from the bottom, and really paying attention to what you're doing when it comes to bringing young players in and actually developing that talent. It might take a few years.
Good point. on the Pistons. Johnathan Marshall, kind enough to join us a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, Rich Quinones, powered by Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. Got to get the address correct. Open 7 days a week. They'll give you fair value for your trade. And also, we are brought to you by Fresh Roasted Coffee, my drink of BYP, as well as Middays with Q. Check out the link in show notes for the referral. You get 20% off your first purchase, BYP20, or Back Your Play. This pipe dream that the Sixers are going to land that big fish, right? LeBron's not coming to Philly. And quite frankly, how disappointed will the Sixers fan be? I don't think Paul George is coming to Philly either. I really don't. And I think it's more of, where he's already at. Like you can't, right? You're kind of comparing apples and oranges, but they want to make a splash. We know that the window is closing. We've talked about it for years. I think it's shut. I think they should have made a move a couple years ago. It's been well documented. You and I both went on the record, trade and beat, started all over. This is where you're at, but I have to get my weekly Sixers little dig in there. What's I guess on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and most likely to happen, Paul George to Philly?
Man, it's really hard to say. I'm still in the middle right now because I have a hard time seeing him leave his home. Like literally he's from out there, right? And
That's my
so
whole point. That's hard,
from
hard
out
to compete with
there,
that.
beautiful weather
Yep.
versus a team in Philly, cold weather.
Yep.
Philly's a great city, but cold weather. It's not LA, the weather-wise, but also just a situation where you still not guarantee you're going to compete for a championship in Philly. It's just not a promise, right? Joel Embiid's health, his injury concerns, that's going to be a routine thing, right? And PG, he's getting older, right? He's pushing his mid-30s, right?
Yep.
So what is the upside to leaving the Clippers right now, right? Versus being in Philly. Like what are you in a better position to win a championship
Mm-hmm.
compared to being in LA? You know what I mean? And maybe slightly improved because you have a Joel Embiid when he's healthy, you have a Maxey, but you still got to run into Boston and Milwaukee, a
Yep.
healthy, right? And so you're still number 3 in the Eastern Conference, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, which leaves me with this. And again, as we close it out, Johnathan Marshall, kind enough to join us at John_Marshall3, sports reporter anchor, WMUR, and kind enough to join us on Middays with Q as well as BYP, Back Your Play with Q. So you mentioned those teams in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Boston Celtics, odds-on favorite to get back to the finals to repeat. You look at Milwaukee, maybe healthy Giannis. We saw Cleveland, Orlando, young teams, the Knicks arriving with Brunson. They still need some pieces. We mentioned the Sixers. Then you got the Western Conference. I guess in short, to close it out, right now, if we take a very early sneak peek, who's your favorite coming out of the Western Conference? And obviously,
Wow.
Boston's got to be the favorite coming out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Boston's a favorite right now. Out of the Western Conference, this is tough, right? My first instinct says Denver, right? But I want to see what offseason moves they can make to
Yeah.
improve that bench, what players get better. I want to see if Dallas improves it, if they get a third scorer. I really like the Thunder. I've been on the Thunder for a couple
Yes.
years now. If they can add a legit big, I expect the young guys to naturally grow and get better. If they can add a solid big just to help, provide a presence, I kind of like the Thunder, but my sleeper, I like the Memphis Grizzlies too. Like I think Memphis might have a major say in what the Western Conference looks like next year. But I would say the Thunder, followed by the Nuggets, and then I'm high. I'm just really high on the Grizzlies. I really am. I am.
OKC 57 wins, top seed. I think because you're still biased towards your Memphis days down there, right?
Now, look, look, people forget about Ja, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson. They have a young kid, GG Jackson was a second round pick. He was an all rookie teamer this past season. They have a high draft pick this year. I think they might look. I just think after all that they've been through with Ja and the
Mm.
injuries they've had to endure, they had some young guys that have had to step up and work on their games and grow. I think they can really come on strong next season. But the West is going to be the West, as far as I'm concerned, is still wide open, right? No team has really proven themselves to be like, okay, this is the juggernaut that we have to really contend with. We thought it would be Denver, right? And then
Right.
Minnesota comes along, right? But
They
even
had the hiccup.
Minnesota, I'm not totally sold on them long-term wise with what they have right now. I feel like there's still some things that they have to improve and add to what they already have with Anthony Edwards. So to me, the West is open. I'm excited to see what the Thunder can do with added improvements to that roster.
All right, there you have it. Last word to our guest, Johnathan Marshall. Give him a follow on X at John_Marshall3. And of course, does a great job, sports reporter anchor at WMUR. And perhaps we will be hearing some of his content. Who knows? On a more weekly basis, always kind enough to join us on BYP Middays with Q right here. Not only on the YouTube channel, Rumble, as well as Sports Radio 1029 FM, the game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. We will do it again next week, my friend. Always appreciate a couple moments.
Draft time, Q.
Yes, sir. Thank you.